Hi everyone, I'm Donna Stillhorn, your practical astrologer, and today we are talking about Saturn and what Saturn could take from you as it leaves the sign of Pisces. So Saturn is currently in Aries, but it's going to go back into Pisces on September 1, and it will stay there until February 13, 2026. And when Saturn leaves a sign, it takes something from you. And Saturn generally does this to show us that we didn't need this thing, or that this was no longer necessary in our lives, although we may not feel that way at the time. You see, Saturn's all about what is useful, and Saturn wants us to build something. And so when things get in the way of that, they are removed. But Saturn could also signal the ending of a friendship, a connection, and it reminds us that we are all here temporarily. So let's think back to the last time Saturn left a sign. That would be the sign of Aquarius, and because it was going into Pisces, and that was March 2023. So I went back in my own Google Calendar and looked at March 2023, and at the time my apartment was having power issues. I thought it was the power company having problems, but it turned out to be the circuit breaker in my apartment. It kept shorting out. Interesting, Aquarius rules electricity. At the same time, my computer started giving me that dreaded blue screen, and a couple of months later, I did end up buying a new computer. Aquarius rules computers. I also, that month, unfortunately, went to a friend's memorial. She had passed away a few months before of cancer. She was Aquarius rising. Now Saturn will leave Pisces. And Pisces is a complex sign. It rules spirituality and intuition, but it also rules addiction. And so the reason that it rules both of those, which seem to be so different, is because there's a lack of boundaries with Pisces. So there's a spiritual side where there's no boundaries, and that means that you can commune with the universe, that you can, talk to your angels or guides or people who've passed over, because there's no boundary there. But that lack of boundaries also means that it gives you roads to escape. So you can escape into drugs or alcohol or other mind-altering substances or activities that cause you to check out. Now, one of the best things that Saturn could take from you as it leaves Pisces is taking away an addiction, something that has been a crutch that you've been leaning on to escape. Saturn's the taskmaster, so there's not a lot of room for checking out in general. Things like binge eating or binge watching a screen or doing anything where you're less engaged or less productive or less magnificent. That is something that Saturn wants to correct. Now, that's not to say that there's not a place for eating and watching TV or drinking or doing any of those activities. Saturn is looking for when it's a crutch. Saturn's looking for when it's an addiction. And the thing that people don't understand about Saturn is when you do Saturn, your life gets better. It's because when you do Saturn, which is duty and responsibility, you feel a sense of purpose. You can gain a sense of authority. You can gain expertise. You do things that are valued by yourself and others. There's a line my friend says all the time, and that is there's no crying in baseball. It's from a movie. I don't remember what movie it was. Maybe you remember. But that's kind of the Saturn energy. It says, be strong, believe in yourself, and work hard. Another thing that Saturn could take away during this last time in Pisces, the last time it's going to be in Pisces for 29 years, by the way, is fear. And that could be a very specific fear, something that you suddenly realize that you're not afraid of anymore, something you've grown out of. But it also can be the realization that you're a little bit addicted to fear. From news reports to your own imagination, we tend to immerse ourselves in negative possibilities. We start to get nervous about something and our mind starts buzzing and we're working out all the probabilities and our heart is pumping and adrenaline's coursing through our system and we feel alive. But fear is not actually helpful and we shouldn't be using it for this purpose. So there's a whole bunch of things we can do to feel alive without indulging in fear. And that would include not just, scary movies, but scary news reports. So there are things like going on a first date, or public speaking, or starting a company, or traveling to a new place, or trying a new activity, or expressing love and loyalty, even if you don't know that that will be returned. All of these can make you feel alive too. Now, if you know some astrology, you can look more closely at your chart and see what house Saturn is actually traveling through, and this will give you more information about what you might be letting go. But it's all going to center around the Pisces energy. And the things that you let go of with Pisces are addictions, fears, or some sort of trap you find yourself in. And if you have any questions, or you would like me to look at your chart in more detail, I do readings. There's a link in the description, and I'll see you in the next video.